technical difficulties. And
Yeah, exactly.
Give me a pencil.
We're not
Sound costs extra.
You can write it on the whiteboard.
Do we have sound now, Mike?
We do know. So why don't you do your intro there?
All right. All right, so now we have sound.
I need another sound engineer on the staff there to make that work.
Incoming concern threads. All right, so again, sorry about that, but as typical, we're moving. This is a new thing. We generally stream in Mike's office over there, and today we're moving a lot of cameras out so you guys can see one that will be on the screen, one will be here. This is kind of an inside look at what the undergrounders are going to get, the membership, for what they're up to. These are live design meetings. You'll be part of the process. You'll be fly on the wall. This is what you get when you are a member of the underground. So, Rob, you want to go through the 4 things again that we just talked about? So, we had a small rehearsal for.
Okay, we had a warm up where everyone get to see us doing the pantomime version of the meeting. All right, so 4 things to accomplish. 1, the cycle itself. Resources mining blocks contain resources, turn into resource pickups. Pickups are then used by ships to manufacture power-ups. So, what is that cycle? How does it work precisely? Next thing. What resources are we going to use? How many of them? What categories? Right. How do those work? How do we score them, basically?
Right.
How exactly do we turn those resources into power-ups then? So what are the recipes for that? And then the last thing is we want to do a little discussion with Josh here about the look of all this stuff. How does it visually tie together?
Yeah. How do we let people know what that is that they're looking at?
Exactly. It's like how does it read quickly?
Right.
So
Exactly.
That leads very nicely into what are our goals for the system. Number 1, more than anything, it's not in the way of having fun. It is part of the fun.
Right.
So this cannot be distracting people from playing the game. It should still feel like playing the game. It should be organically part of the whole.
Right. Some things automated to where they're happening as you're going flying by, things like that. Yeah.
Simplicity.
Simple.
It's got to be simple. It has to read well in the HUD. You have to know this information readily. What have you picked up? How can I use it? And then it has to read well in the world, so I can tell what's out there.
Right.
And then the last thing is it's got to drive gameplay itself. People should want to do this. So that's those are our main system goals. Okay. Now we already know what we can build: bots, ammo and missiles, shields, energy. Those are the things that currently ships can build. Now bots, of course, are mostly reserved for enemies right now, but someday. You never can tell.
Right, someday.
So let's now go. Keith has been working on kind of a diagram of how the system might work. So I'm going to turn it over to Keith and the projection, and we'll talk about it.
Okay. Alrighty. So up on the screen there, we've got around the edges we have the general categories. We've got energy, maybe afterburner fuel or something like that. Ammo and missiles, shield orbs, and then on the left-hand side we have complex things like entire drones, and simpler things like maybe gadgets or repair power-ups or whatever you need for the repair tool. And then the arrows represent sort of recipes. So if you look at the 5 categories of basic mineable materials, then the idea being that you would combine maybe 2 for the simple things or maybe 4 for building ships back at your harvester. So there's a reason to mine everything in-game, but there's also, all of those can have monetary values too if you have a surplus at the end of the match. And then off to the left, we've got palisite, which is
super special.
Phyllosite.
Phyllosite.
The phyllosites.
The strange thing is, palisite is actually comprised mostly of base metals.
Right.
So we could allow it to be used as one, but of course the value, then you're losing the value.
I personally think you should have a choice. I mean, I think there should be something that you choose to use your palisite, for some weapon or something.
If the system is simple enough, then that we wouldn't want them to have to make that choice. It should be out of the way so you can't accidentally burn your
well, accidentally,
stuff.
For sure accidentally, but if it's a special, right, and it's a very big special, and you have enough palisite, why not?
We'd have to come up with another interface for that then. So
yeah, no doubt.
The complexity of it is the important thing. I mean, looking at this, I can already say I think we probably want to take it down 1 step and make the simple things take 1, and the complex things take 2.
Yeah.
because that's easier to read. It's a lot easier to read. You don't have to think too much. It's like, if I make this thing, I'm mostly looking for this color resource. That's
a
easy,
fair point.
easy.
And that's a fair point. And color is going to be
Yeah.
a good example. So we'll be using color to help define what is what.
Josh is sitting over there brimming with ideas already, I can tell. So, okay.
It's a color wheel.
So let's talk a bit about these categories that you've put it into. I can see that we already have these five categories of
Yeah.
resources, so that's readable there to me. It's five things I have to display on my HUD. So
Yeah.
let's talk about the individual categories.
Okay. That's just a picture of Palisite.
That's Palisite, right?
And so radioactives, these would be things like you would want for fuel or energy probably.
Right.
These are some examples of elements in that category, and these three things here are ores that various radioactives are found in. So that's just a visual kind of thing for us to look at.
Those are the hardest ones to pronounce. Technetium? Is that how
It's
that's
something.
pronounced?
Yeah, no. You know what? I actually
We're
thought
sorry,
of
all of you.
that. I thought of that, and I thought that's too corny. I'm not gonna. So
My filter focused that out. You're in trouble, pal.
But I was thinking, do we need 4 radioactives?
I don't think
We don't know.
Or can you have just you choose one and you give, you based on the color, you give powers or you give a percentage of strength.
Well, that's what I'm thinking is if radioactives is just the displayed thing to you, there might be varying shades of that, for instance,
Right.
and they just give you more or fewer points.
Right. But
And
it would be nice
that
to have
would
some
work for the
fiction
scoring
behind.
too.
It'd be nice to have some lore and some fiction behind what they are and why they're important.
Lore guy down there will totally be on that.
Yeah, I know, Keith. That was for Keith. He likes the lore.
He's good with this lore stuff.
So yeah, the thorium and uranium are probably the two that we would focus on, for
Yeah,
story
anything
stuff.
I can't say, we're probably not going to use.
Well, and those two are also the ones that are most thought of when people think energy. The other
Energy,
two
right,
are
right.
used more. They're radioactive, but they're really not for reactors and stuff.
Right.
Next, we have volatiles. These are things that would tend
Helium-3.
to
Yeah.
be gases at room temperature, but they are pretty useful. Or water, liquid at room temperature. Water would probably be a big one.
Certainly.
You can see the little flaming thing there. That's a methane clathrate.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's basically methane ice.
Which is all over the universe, by the way.
Yeah, it's cool
and
stuff.
That's the kind of stuff we should probably, we want to try to stay somewhat true to space, so that.
Yeah.
Well, and ice is definitely going to be
It'll look
crucial
beautiful.
material in our.
I mean, the maps
I'd
look
like
great.
to
with
see
some-
us inside like an ice.
Mhm.
Yeah.
full
Oh,
ice
yeah.
An ice-droid.
Yeah.
It's funny
With
thinking of
unobtainium.
oxygen. It's funny thinking of oxygen as a volatile. It's the term volatile and water. Or oxygen. You just don't think of it. Or water. You don't think of that.
Yeah.
Volatile? Why is that so volatile?
Right.
If you're shooting a laser at it, though, it gets pretty volatile.
Pretty volatile. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, these again, probably just water and clathrates. We could even just do as.
Oh, helium-3 is pretty popular. I mean, it's very, very sought after today.
It goes to all the dances.
Yeah.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
All of those.
And the one
are
on the top
easily
right there, the
recognizable
blue,
by
what is
people.
that?
That's just water ice in a
That's amazing.
particularly
That's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that looks. Can you
That
imagine?
looks like-
flying
Could we
out-
do
That's
something with
first
that?
thing I thought when I
Well,
looked
and
at
that
it. I
might
was
be like what the inside of a comet looks like with the sun
Yeah.
shining.
Well, I just
down
think
Wow.
for our game, I could see a map where you're flying through a tunnel of that, and you can mine as you go, and as you're going along, it's clearing bits
Mhm.
behind it. That just is beautiful. That's really cool looking.
That would be good to show off.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so then we have, these are base metals like aluminum, iron, that kind of stuff. And again, these are just ores.
Very familiar again to people.
Come
Yeah.
on, where's rare metals? Never mind. I was gonna. Never mind.
And
Hold on a second.
yeah, so those are pretty straightforward. Iron and nickel are going to be incredibly common in asteroids. The others less
See,
so.
to me, I would like to. I think it'd be fun to have some common stuff, and it's just not as valuable as
Mhm.
some of this stuff. So you make a decision whether you're going to fly by or
Mhm.
hey, maybe you need that. Maybe your team needs just a little bit to finish the map, and this is close to your base, and you can mine it and get it up there.
The last couple of points you need
Yeah,
to finish.
and then
the
maybe
quota.
Rob's team is behind it. They're like, I found some some palisade or whatever. They're over there dragging out some really expensive stuff and trying to get it back to one guy's here just getting this last bit, the other guy's here going poof, you know, so it creates a nice little end game scenario.
Well, and this would also be one that would, I would think, in terms of building drones and stuff, we would want them to
Yeah.
harvest a lot
Those
to do
would be the most
bigger
common for that.
things. But easy to mine. There's lots of it, but
Well, you know, you can. I guess that gets back to whether the drones are, you know, whether the harvesters themselves are actually collecting the easy stuff out of the top of the asteroids while you're in there collecting the
Well,
hard
that
stuff.
could be too.
I guess that's just something we have to figure out for how the mechanics work. But
and I'm not sure why that one's so small, but organics.
Organics are small for the vegetarians.
They're embarrassed.
These these are things that like space colonies would have a tendency to need for, you know, farming or whatever. They can also be used, for instance, making gunpowder in your
On the ballistics?
for the ballistic weapons and stuff. So and missiles or whatever.
Plus, sulfur just looks cool.
Smells bad though.
And we got a little fluorite skull over there, which is just
So
awesome.
you know, we have the lava kind of thing. You think that would be littered with sulfur? You know, so we want to tie in some of the stuff we're doing in the maps
Yeah.
with some of our decisions here. Sodium, yeah, well.
Yeah, everybody.
Oh, you
needs
put a
salt.
skull in there, awesome.
Yeah, which is made of calcium and fluorine, by the way.
Really?
It's fluorite.
Fluorite skull.
I'm not saying it's aliens.
It's aliens.
And now we have rare metals.
Right. There we go.
Which again, you know, pretty obvious. Some of them, all of these have industrial uses. Gold, you know, for electronics and stuff. And again, different ores.
Nice
So-
ones don't grow on trees.
yeah.
Well, we're a few years in the future.
They do grow on trees by
And
then.
maybe in the iPhone tree. Yeah.
Biotech.
Cool. I think there's two things we want to look at, right? Is we want to look at what works for you know, makes sense for our game, right?
Mhm.
And two is what looks cool.
Yeah,
Right?
what's visually most
What's
interesting?
visually, most interesting in the maps, because you know these people are going to be playing our maps over and over, as are we, and so.
So let's bring back up the category diagram,
Yeah,
the
bring that
overall
back.
diagram, and let's talk about that a little bit then. It's like, okay, these 5 categories make sense.
They do.
They are good broad classifications. I don't see any problem with that. So the question is then, how do we divide them up so their usage is good for us as far as level balancing and everything? And you know, is it, you can find 80% of everything in the mine is base metals, so we need to use that more frequently for building stuff, or do we want to make it so we distribute things fairly equally?
Couldn't you combine, couldn't you combine some of these with like, if you are looking for say energy or fuel, and you're going after, I don't know, radium, for instance, for energy and fuel. Maybe as you're mining the radium, if you do have two things of need, maybe it's 80% radium, what you're mining, and 20%, you know, hydrogen.
One or the
something.
other
Yeah,
one.
something else that it needs. So that
Well, we definitely could mix. I mean, if we have a good system for
Most
the
minerals
pickups,
are
then
mixed
they
with
could
other
be
things.
clustered up, yeah, different kinds of things.
Yeah.
Little chains of different.
Well, that'd be cool
colors.
too, because then you could have surprises in there that you think you're mining something else, and actually there's a pocket of, you know, fills, for instance, or pals or whatever, you know.
Which
So-
actually would be a great way to sort of hide them is in something else
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
somebody would be.
Right, and it also gives a reason for some of the scanners. Maybe they have more sensitivity to finding those things.
Mm-hmm.
So go back. I'm sorry.
So do we want to then think of 1-to-1 mappings for the simple stuff and 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 for the complex stuff? Does that make sense to everybody? I mean,
It seems 1-to-1 and 2-to-1.
because it means that
Oh, I like the two. I think you're right. Complex should be no more than two.
Yeah,
and
you
simple
look
should
down
be
at your
one.
HUD and there's the 5 different colors represented there, or however we're going to represent them, and you can very quickly go, okay, I have enough of that color
Right. So you're
to
gonna.
build this my energy.
So in the HUD, all these little. I mean, you could even do it in a circular way that fills up whatever, however, Smitty wants to do it. But they would be represented on my HUD somewhere. So I'd have basically a fuel tank for all these things.
Yes, essentially it
Yeah,
would
makes
be
sense.
just like an ammo can or anything else. You're just keeping account of how much, and that way, if we have multiple categories or subcategories in each of these categories, we just do a point system where this one's worth 5 points in your cargo, this one's worth 1 point in your cargo,
Yeah, that makes
this
sense.
one's worth 15. It's like, well, I definitely want that one because that's good
And
for
I
scoring
can
and everything.
use these two to do something
Yeah.
special in the map if I choose
Yeah.
to do that. So turning it in, yeah, that makes sense.
So radioactives, you said when you were talking about that, the radioactives are probably more likely energy fuel.
Yeah,
or?
probably the most. The reason that the complex stuff right now has the 4 was it was basically all of those components would sort of go into a ship when you first build it.
Yeah.
It would have energy, it would have ammo, it would have shields, it would have. So that was the logic.
Okay, so
behind
but
that.
We're gonna have to gamify it down. Though,
Yeah,
so.
no, that makes sense.
But we're looking to build ships here.
In the harvester.
Right.
Yeah,
See,
you're bringing these back home for that. For they also have to keep up their stock, right? So.
Yeah, no, I get it. That's sort of the contract. You could simplify that by taking that completely out of the equation because there is no persistence in the sense that the harvester has X amount in your thing. You could just say that it takes a percentage. It's always doing that, so you don't actually have the ships and bots to worry about. I mean, we have said consistently that you'll never have to worry about being having enough to build.
Yeah. Well, but it still gives you a validation for why you're bringing this stuff back. It's like, we need this to keep this.
I agree.
Running.
I just think that if you're not, we don't have a persistence in the sense that we don't have a meta game going where you need this company, at least not right away. Maybe phase 2 or 3 people, but not right away. We're not going to be worrying about the corporation X has enough of everything.
Right.
Well, what I figured, this is my thinking was, you never run out to the point where the harvester can't make more ships, but your payout at the end is partially dependent on how much over what you used
Profit.
you've got left.
Oh, so you could actually, I like that. So you could actually, okay, that makes sense. So you could actually increase your payment as a player. I'm down with that. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
So
that's cool. That's a kind of simple gameplay that enhance. That's a gameplay enhancer.
yeah, so this would just pull out of whatever your overage in the harvester is.
Cool. All right. Yeah, I like
That makes
it.
sense.
Yeah.
So the only thing I see volatiles used for up there is energy and fuel. So maybe we want to use volatiles there instead. Here's a question. It's like, well, if that's the only thing they're used for, then we know that the energy is the warlock. The warlock will really want to find volatiles all the time. Radioactives could go into bots. That would make sense. Now, again, that's not something players do right now, but in the long term, that could happen. Or if they're making gadgets, maybe. Yeah, we just have to make sure they're all in use.
Yeah, I would simplify a little bit. Maybe all in use for the left side here. Is what you're talking about?
Yeah, well, we'll try to make sure all the categories get used somewhere in
Well,
the game.
clearly they're all used for the main. Look, the majority of your time is going to be spent on the energy, ammo, and shields side of the equation. The other side of the equation will be, well, a lot of hardcore players will find a way to game and gain an advantage with that, which is
But repair is also really important.
that is true.
That's crucial.
That is true. I guess that's true. That would go along with. But that's also something probably. I don't know. I mean, is repair all that important? I mean, most of the time your ships are most like popcorn, right? You're going to be blowing up.
I don't think you want to.
Nobody wants to blow up, but you don't.
Well,
you have another ship, so.
Well, this one over the gadgets repair basically is the feeder for the warlock.
Yeah.
I understand. Okay.
So
So,
both
yeah.
in terms of its gadgets and in terms of its repairability.
So could we use, let's see, ammo, it's hard ammo and missiles. We could use volatiles for that too in theory, but.
Well, you should use volatile. Well, yeah,
Let's
especially for. Well, if you're okay, so ammo is also so ammo you need to find, right? Are we just talking about ballistics here? Because that's what it looks like to me. Or
That's
are
the
you
only
talking?
thing that has ammos.
Yeah, right. Well, I know. So energy. You're right. That is the only thing for ammo. So ammo is actually not as big, unless you're including ammo as missiles.
Missiles.
Yeah, you're right. You're
bullets,
right. I
yeah.
get you. Yeah.
So that's going to be a big deal because if you can replenish your ammo more readily than the other team, well, you have a huge advantage.
Well, but that's a choice you're making as
Yeah.
to what you're looking for.
Absolutely.
Right, and that's a team based. I like decisions that affect how you do. I mean, that's kind of the whole thing. It needs to be different ways of going about doing it.
It's like, okay, 2 of our guys have the Vulcan power up now, so we definitely want to be looking for ammo components.
Organics. How would organics fit into ammo, though? I mean,
I would put them in
Gunpowder.
shields. Yeah.
And
oh, I see.
explosives.
So we need to. Okay, so that's phosphate or magnesium or
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
This is where we take reality and sort of shove it aside and go,
Yeah.
how do we game it?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's it. Well, see, I think what you can do in that response is, in that instance, you choose the ones you want, and you can just say that you're getting X amount of magnesium or X amount of whatever,
And however we use them, it's just then we just take that and go, well, as a general rule, most of the resources should be broken down in these percentages so that they're all available. And it may be in some cases, certain maps are really strong in one thing and weak in another. Like if there's an ice map, well, you're going to get a lot of volatiles out of that. But
I mean, potentially we could combine volatiles and organics and just call it organic. So water and carbon and stuff is all
that'd be interesting.
in that bundle. So now we're only trying to solve
Cleans
4.
up the HUD a little bit.
Yeah, if we get it down to 4, win.
I like the idea of
I'd be down for
combine.
that.
I think that's cool. I think let's do that. Let's combine
Okay,
organics. and
volatiles plus organics equals one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Organics.
Okay, well that simplifies.
So that now we're only trying to do 4 things, so it could be easily.
It could be 1 and 1, 2 to 1. That makes more sense.
So
It's easier.
radioactives for energy, organics for ammo, rare metals for shields.
Well, organics are also for energy, right? Or are you saying?
Oh, well, if we're trying to simplify
Trying
it
to
so
do
there's
it
only
for
one
one,
thing.
yeah,
I
we're
see.
per-
I see.
one.
Okay, so organics for ammo, base metals.
would be
Base
for
metals would be repair.
yeah, and rare metals for shields.
Okay.
Perfect.
Oh, so you're moving. Okay, you're moving repair over
I
there.
totally heart that solution.
Yeah, I like it too.
All right, rare metals equals.
Yeah, repair is kind of in
what did I
2
miss?
places. So
Yeah,
that's
it is. It is.
Okay, so radioactives, energy, volatiles, organics, ammo, base metals, repair, rare metals, shields, and then for bots and stuff, we will figure out a combination of 2 of those probably. Maybe that would end up being like radioactives and
Well,
base
for-
metals, or maybe I don't
Well,
know.
for I mean, for drones, for full-blown drones.
Yeah.
Actually, Lothar had an interesting point, which he said,
Mhm.
why do we have base and rare? Why can't you combine base and rare metals too? That makes sense.
Could do that as well.
Yeah, we could do that.
But then would you need rare metals for? Maybe I see. So rare metals are only for shields and gadget repair, right?
We could then make.
You wouldn't use rare metals though for ammo.
We could make radioactives do both shields and energy, which just could be variants of the same thing. It's not that just means that you're tracking 3 things. Simple,
Yeah, I mean, if you
simple.
break it down to just metals.
Okay.
And
So
then,
metals, organics, and radioactives.
Be good.
Ah,
Especially
Then
when
what we do? Oh no!
at least we have
like that
sound.
work with, like if you actually imagine yourself in the level and your team's spreading out and you've got 3 that you're going for instead of not just from team strategy of where you're going, but also from the size of the level. If these are tighter levels with smaller halls and smaller rooms for that quick combat stuff, how much room will you have to propagate?
Yeah.
What if you only want 3 out of the 4 or something like that? It seems like having 3, then you can have more of them and not have to worry about that.
And actually, that
Diversify.
could do some simplification with our visual language in terms of the minerals. So, like the radioactives might be brighter colors.
Absolutely.
Right.
So
exactly.
more intense, like neon kind of
Absolutely.
stuff.
So, but you could
The
have very
metals
similar visual
could
for
be more general earth tone, muted kind of stuff, and then the organics could be lighter, not bright, but like whites, pastels.
Now you're talking dirty.
Look at.
But see,
Lothar
but that's what's
changing
gonna
the rules here.
that's what's gonna matter because it's like that's visually because you're going to be going so fast, right?
Yeah.
If you can get that visual cue to give you what this is or what this isn't, and then decide, maybe you mark that you tag that area, right?
Well, especially
Let's
with
go back.
metals, like metal looks like metal, and you don't have to stop to go. It's
Yeah.
like, where's
Right.
the
And,
metal?
and what you can do is just
Right. Well,
then
but you can see the
have
color
it
wheel of that
turned.
and say,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
well, your metal looks like metal, but that's got a brighter hue, so maybe it's
Yeah.
more
And
valuable.
internally, that gives us a point system that we track that doesn't
Right.
necessarily matter to the players. It's just you come back and you just got 20 points per block in your
It
whole.
also
as
allows us to
opposed one.
randomize
Yeah.
the maps better. I mean,
Yeah.
every time you play the map, you roll the dice to see what percentage of metals or whatever you're going to get in that map, and then
What
you
quality.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
So
it,
then
it
your
gives
base metals just score lower
to
than
me
your
this
rare metals,
so
for instance.
to me this is about replayability, right? And so
Yeah.
if the map is not the same every time, even if maybe some of the corridors are the same, but it's different feeling and there's different goals, then
Absolutely.
you've just increased the playability of that game by.
But just a different amount of resources.
Right,
You
right.
Change
Well,
this is going to be a really big power-up match.
100%.
There's going to be a ton of drones everywhere.
But you don't know that going in
Yeah.
what it's going to be, right?
Exactly.
You go in and play, and then we're also going to have we'll have certain tunnels that will be closed sometimes when you play, they'll be open other times. So the maps themselves will change a little. The base map will be the same, but yeah, I love it a lot. I think this is really good. I think this is good.
So are we agreed on this? This is going in the design doc. Radioactives or energy and shields, volatiles and organics or ammo, metals or repair. Good, good. Everyone cool with that?
Yeah.
And then we'll break it down and we'll set up a scoring system. We can do that after we sit down and talk about it some more. We can figure out what the scoring system should look like. But that's visible. And then there's Palisade.
Do we want to keep Palisade as a separate?
Yes.
Okay.
Palisade's money. I mean, basically, is what you are digging for new stuff.
Okay. So we would have 4
Yep.
categories or whatever displayed for people.
Perfect. That certainly simplifies the HUD down considerably.
Yes. Smitty will be happy to hear that.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I'll make sure to tell him.
Okay, so Smitty, there's 16 resources. It's like what?
But there are 4 sub-classifications of each.
We need a little flow chart at the bottom of our cargo display.
That's an RPG. I don't think.
All right, so we're good with that. I think we've got most of our goals are accomplished on the system as far as we now know what the cycle is going to look about. Let's talk about the cycle.
Lothar said he's worried that we would have a system where all the good ores buy a base. We're not going to do that, dude.
No.
We'll have a system in place that still places things equidistance and.
Now, on the single player, the good ores might all be by the constructor bot that's traveling around dropping mining bots. That's fine. You're going to have a bad day then. It's like, we really need these 2 things, and they just happen to be at the very back. Kind of door that you can't get through yet. Guarded by lots of bots. I think that's good. Okay, so cycle-wise. Now we have to talk about, start with blocks of something in the wall. And there needs to be some sort of a blend between that and our overall texturing, right? So this is going to drive some of the visuals that you're going to build. And then they have to turn into something you can pick up in pieces, a little at a time. And then those turn into the final power-ups, which we've already got some of that visual language going. But, does the color scheme traverse that whole thing from ore to block to pick up ore to a power-up? That's visually consistent. So how do we want it to look?
Yes. So I think the most important thing, visually speaking, of it is you can look at something and go, that's blue. I know I'm going to harvest that, and I can make a shield or power up with it, or I'm going to get a shield boost from that color. Versus like I don't know, silver or yellow or red. Like I think having a color scheme, and we can have different hues.
Would you have would you change the saturation, or would you change like just a vein running through it or something? Or
yeah, so it'd have something like that. And like as you're mining it too, that color can tie into it also. So
Descent itself is a very colorful game. Mm-hmm. It's an arcadey thing, and so I think that fits perfectly.
Well, and it's also set up in a particular way that the textures are very colorful and very bright, but they are very contrasty with the ships, so the ships stand out against the walls, which is really crucial to multiplayer, except for maybe certain stealthy little guys that don't contrast so much.
As far as like how they blend in, I think we'd probably, at least to start off with, we'd probably try to come up with like an iconic shape for each one of these. And we can, alter the color, maybe the specular or metallic look of it based on what they're doing, or the potency, the yield.
Some sound to it too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
and like the more powerful yields might have an ambient effect kind of coming off.
Well,
of
you
it
want
too.
we want a discovery element, right? People are going to want a discovery element for some of the more powerful stuff that can be tagged, and then you want to drop maybe the turrets to protect it or whatever. Or your team's protecting it while you're going back and forth. You want to create what we call points of contention, right? Mm-hmm. Where people want to fight over something. And so that can be done. Color should absolutely be part of that.
And since we've simplified it down to these really 3 major categories, Palisade standing alone, we could even run 2 different color schemes for each of them. So you're like, these are the low scoring ones, these are the high scoring ones. So if I see that color, I'm like, oh, that's valuable to me. I want to take it home or maybe use it. But that way you're looking for variants of them, because you even know what the dollar value is for you and how much better that's going to make your paycheck at the end of the day. It's like, well, the green stuff's okay, but the red stuff's awesome. Or whatever colors we use.
And again, the scout or the predator can maybe discover some of this, or the mining ship, whichever ship has that ability to find those things.
I think the scout definitely has some. The wasp has some. All of them have some degree
Which
of
one
scanning.
transmits the data back to people?
That's the predator. The
Right,
scout.
predator,
The scout
so-
is sending back information to everyone.
Right.
And-
So they can really tag where some of this cool stuff is. I mean, that really makes the predator a fun ship to play. You go out there,
You're the first one to find and tell you and be able to tell your team where stuff is, at least for a temporary time until somebody can drop off the sensors and stop that. But that's a big cool thing.
But discovery is part of your paycheck. I mean, it's the idea that
Your paycheck.
tagging enemies is something we're scoring. You know, if you're finding an enemy, you're doing your job. If you're finding ores, that you're doing your job.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so everyone's purpose is valuable individually and collectively.
So I have a question.
The world is going to end.
Well, no, we're under a tornado watch right now.
Oh, good.
Excellent.
We're under tornado watch, and we're still going for this, baby.
Yeah, we are not stopping just because of some
So if-
puny weather.
So I'm grounded. These skinny guys are screwed.
They're gonna go flying off like Dorothy in
So
the Wizard of Oz.
I've got a question about color. I mean,
Yeah.
what accommodations, how do we make this work for our colorblind brethren?
Oh, that's a fair
And I
point.
say brethren because it's very, very unusual for a woman to be colorblind. Most colorblind people are men.
Sure.
Okay, so that's a fair point. Maybe we can
See-
do that with a glow or some,
Yeah.
not just color, but
Or
also.
the ambient look, the shape of what you're actually
Yeah,
shaping.
shape is-
That's why I
So
think
if you
shapes.
see certain crystals sticking out, then you know it's radioactive.
Yeah,
If you
it's,
see certain-
yeah, that's it. Yeah, you have a certain pattern you can
Yeah.
recognize, not just
So you have to do it. I guess that's a fair point. We need to do it for both.
So
It's
this
like
is
just-
actually leading into another question I was going to ask, which is, are we going to do the shrinking power up or little clusters? If we do shapes, then you can do little clusters of diamonds versus little clusters of spheres versus little
Right.
clusters of.
Are you talking about little? Okay, so what are you talking about? Like the floating parts? Or are you talking about the little clusters on the wall?
When you actually pop them
When
off.
they actually pop out and you're going to pick them up, when you're sucking them up slowly and it's shrinking down. If it's just a little cluster of like 10 little blobs and we just pull one off at a
And there's
time
only
and make
like
it
you can only
disappear.
take 3 of them. And it's
Yeah, so
3
that
of them
leaves
and you
7
still
of
have
them
a-
still sitting there. Yeah,
Mhm.
that way you can use some shape language to differentiate.
Oh yeah, so the
in
little
addition to
little
colors.
blobby things can be the same shape.
So
as
yeah,
the
those are little
crystal.
spheres, so that means it's an organic. I know what that is.
I see
or
an
whatever.
issue with that. Well, I mean, so we have a lot of things that would have to be shaped that way, and there'd be a lot of power-ups to create in that regard. I mean, wouldn't it be to me the simpler solution would be to have it one thing pops out and then it shrinks based on the percentage that's left. If you do little globbies of everything, then we've already got like 15, 16 elements up here. So now you got to have 15, 16 little globbies.
There'd be one set of shapes per category,
But-
and
but
they
the-
just
but-
change
but then you
hue
got-
and
okay, you-
shininess. That's all.
But then so that works until you get to the colorblind part where the hue doesn't matter to the colorblind person.
Well,
So
Right.
and now you're creating. all
They'll be
this-
able to read that it's a variant of a hue. I mean, they'll be able to read darker light of that particular shape. So
Yes.
I mean, that will make a difference
Or it could be a
as
more,
long as
the
they're
effect.
shaped differently.
The
then-
effect will
Yeah.
be different between.
And shiny versus dull reads, all of that still reads if you're
The-
colorblind. It's just as long as you're not trying to say red balls
But
and
then,
green
okay,
balls.
but then
are
the
two
engine
different
has to,
things.
Jason. The engine has to track what? Like there could be thousands of these little poppy things all over that they're blown out of the rocks.
Yeah.
Now. And isn't that going to be an issue for us?
Well, that's the question.
If they all stack on top of each other and you move the camera, so that's all you saw, that'd kill your performance. But
I mean, I just think I'm not sold that that adds any value to a cluster.
Well,
And
the one thing
particle
that
systems could handle a higher number of little effects.
Right, but
They're
then
pretty
and these are going to be particles. I mean,
Yeah, fair
that's-
enough.
that's-
generally speaking, the expense for particles comes from overdraw, the amount you have. Like that's why you can have like thousands of tiny sparks. So
Remember
as long
too-
as they were gone and we're not like
Remember too
tracking
that your
them.
ship can also be identifying things with words or symbols.
Yeah.
You know, as it scans and discovers
Yeah.
things.
That's
so
true.
It's not entirely upon a visual thing. It's,
Let's.
you have a computer doing
This
the
is
job.
something I think we're going to have to research and think
yeah,
about.
we'll definitely look at it. But the other
And
thing,
it's going to be a gameplay too.
Yeah.
What is it cool to fly through lots of little things, or does it matter?
well, the other thing about
Because
lots
I mean,
of
you're
little
flying
things.
so fast, Rob. Are you going to see a lot of little things, or are you going to see that big thing that you need to go over there and get?
But if
You have
it's
to-
lots of little things, I can count them and see how much there is there. If
You're
it's,
gonna-
it's,
you're
if
gonna
it's
count
going to drink. Well, when I get up close to it, I know exactly how many are there, which I can then
So,
look
but
at my
then
homes
don't
and
you,
go,
but
I
then,
have
okay,
7
but then
spots.
don't you need something that says I only want 3 or I only want 4 or?
Well, I mean,
Okay, what if you? What
we're
if you
going to
can-
have some
What if
way
you
of
can take
just-
35% of the 10?
We're going to make it so it doesn't do that.
Well, we can make it if it's one object. We can certainly shrink it 35%. Much easier
Right, but
than
then
we
you
could-
can't visually read it easily, saying I know how much is left there.
Are you actively
You can have
engaging in intake when you are harvesting?
I would
Once the parts are
think
out?
that we'd want to have some way of
So you don't
automatically
accidentally-
doing that, but you can turn it off if you don't want something for some reason.
or,
So-
or dump it.
yeah, or make it easy to jettison stuff. Which when we
Jettison.
looked at the control scheme yesterday, it's like, yeah, ejecting would be the same as spitting out a power up at that point. It's just like I want that out of my ship. So.
Yeah, and then at least if somebody, it's a leave behind.
But it's something. It's a way to share with your teammates if
I
they
love
need a
it.
specific
I'm
thing.
all about
so.
that. All about that.
So maybe that's it. It just automatically picks up until you're full. If you don't want it, you just spit it back out.
That's what I would think.
That keeps you from having to think about it while it's happening.
Okay, well, let's research that, but I think that
Yeah.
the single object is better
A
than.
lot of this will stand up as far as it looks great on a design doc, and then we play the game and it's like, oh, nope, not that. Change it.
And who's going to help us say what's cool about it? The people
In the Proving Grounds. You folks are in the Proving. By the way, what you're watching right now is the first official stream design meeting. You're a fly on the wall on what's happening. This is in order to continue to receive these things, you'll have to be an underground member, and the underground members will get access to these types of meetings as often as we do them. And we're still up in the air. So there's also another tier above that, the advisory board, which we only have like
5 or 6 people in, I think, and
that's much more involved. So
Yeah.
this right here is what you get with underground membership until May 31st. It's on sale for $79, which is $7.09 a month. It's not required. It's only there if you want to be closer to the dev team and closer to the process.
And support the game.
It'll go to $99 in May, which is still a good deal because if you just decide to do month to month, it's $10. And you get your own forum, you get access to these kind of things, and you'll also get like access to early design and concept stuff that other people will
Yeah.
get later on down the road.
We'll have a separate when we get our gallery up. There will be a separate gallery for underground people, but you get the first look.
So there's the marketing for you.
back to
Okay,
work.
turn off marketing mode.
Now,
All right.
on the visual language,
Mhm.
while it's in the wall, do we
Yeah, so
want
that's-
variations of the crystal shape? So if it like organics are round,
Yes.
maybe the better one is a
Well,
faceted sphere versus just a
No.
ball or something.
We'll probably, at least to start with, like if we find later we have to do that, then I think we would, as far as conveying like what the yield of it is, if we want to present that information, it would probably be an ambient effect layered on top
Oh,
of
okay.
it.
Maybe you could change the striations or something.
Yeah, a
into-
basic one is like maybe a little. This is just spitballing idea. It's like let's say radioactive. So basic one is just kind of a very dim glow, whereas like a medium yield might be a bright glow, and then a really
okay.
good yield might be pulsing, that kind of thing. But
Cool.
it'd still be that same shape, so you see it, and you know.
Okay.
But I think part of it too, prototyping once we start getting these in is going to be seeing like, you know, are these? I'm not picturing them literally being blocks, and we might even be able to use the fracture system in Unreal to. It's one large mesh that's composed of several smaller meshes, and as you destroy each part in it with the fracture system, you get resources. And then you could have much more natural looking shapes fitting the environment instead of Minecraft style.
Yeah, just
So,
Poink, hook out
yeah.
the block.
That'll just be
The
part of
ice
what
tray look,
we
as we were
find out.
discussing last week.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I mean, that's going to be a big technology
Yeah.
question, and so
Yep.
you'll see it as it happens. All right, so we've talked about look, we've talked about the list of resources, we've talked about the recipes, we've talked about the life cycle. Anyone else have any questions, comments, last little bits for me to stick in docs before I go off and
No, I think we now go down and
E-scroll.
Right.
Yeah.
And figure out exactly how the system works and systemize.
yes, systemize and tablize and dockify and dockify.
Can you,
Any questions from out there?
as an I think we've talked about this before, but then we'll have game modes where it's just fighting and none of the mineral collection stuff. But we'll have game.
Sure.
a lot of
Oh,
game
there is an
modes.
arcade. There is a classic arcade style mode.
Yeah, there will certainly be. It's like the laddered matches probably won't be not thinking about mining at all. It's like we're just going to go shoot each other. That's no way we're turning that off.
Right. But I mean, it'll be a server setting. People decide what they want to play. Go from there.
So any questions from out there? Out in the wild?
Let me see. I think let's see if anybody has any questions. they're talking about investment right now because Negatron asked if they can invest in the company, and the answer is yeah. You just need to reach out to us. We're going to put an investment page up on the website eventually with a prospectus, and people can decide if they want to. But right now, Kickstarter is not an investment opportunity. It's you're pledging for the game to be made, so that's where that comes from. Anyway, so thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate this. I hope you enjoyed it. This will be kind of, we'll be putting up a little 2 to 3 minute snippet of some highlights from this, if there were any highlights.
I think the first part with no sound should definitely
that's it.
a representative feel for
a Mike Moreland production. Anyway, so
Quality work. Quality.
Yeah, it's all
This
right.
is really how game development works.
Yeah,
I
it
swear.
is.
Not media production.
Okay, so we're going to we'll be signing off now, Mike. Thank you guys for joining us. Help us spread the word. There's still time to. By the way, that's very important for us. We need to unlock the shaman. We need to make sure that we continue to spread the word and get people into the ecosystem because we need more than 10,000 people to shoot. Right? We need a lot, and so the more the merrier. And there's still the packages are still there. We don't have any of the higher tiers anymore. It doesn't make sense to do that, and we will be transitioning over as we go to Proving Grounds and Green Light. But anyway, thank you for joining us. You'll be following along all the way. Thank you for the Undergrounders. Thanks for all of you for allowing us to be here and make this game. And
do this kind of thing.
we'll see him where, Rob? Where are we going to see him?
Underground.
Underground.